What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's daily market recap. In today's episode, I'm going to break down all of my trades from the morning. Now, those of you guys who tune into my recaps every single day, you'll notice that this doesn't look like my office. It's not. I am on my traveling trading station here. So I'll pull the camera back so you can see a little bit better. I've got, let's see. Where do I start? I've got my laptop here in the center. I've got two USB monitors, one on the left, one on the right, leaning up against a stack of National Geographics. These are very useful. And here's the way I approach this. I say, you know what? I've had such a great start to the month of May. Thursday, Friday, huge green days. I say, you know what? I'm going to go somewhere nice and warm. And so I'm now in the Caribbean. And right out this window here, what do I see? The Caribbean Ocean. So I'm in St. Martin, which you guys know I come here pretty frequently. It's a very short flight from JFK, and the weather here is great, which is awesome, and the internet is fantastic. Now, that's very important. Last year, I came down here, and when I came down last year, if you recall, I realized when I was on the plane that I had forgotten what? My laptop charger. I was like, this is a disaster. But I said, no, look, it's not that big a deal. I'll just call computer stores down here in St. Martin, and I'm sure I'll be able to find a replacement laptop charger. How hard can it be? Well, not only is it hard, it was impossible, because this computer right here is the Falcon F30. It is a super high-powered laptop, which is excellent. It's good for trading, but it's excellent for live streaming, broadcasting, recording, and editing YouTube videos. So it's a great workstation to have when you're on the go. But it has a very specific power charger. I couldn't find a single one down here in St. Martin. So I said, well, what am I going to do? Take the week off? Not a chance. So I bought a laptop. I had it brought to the house that I was staying at, and I traded that week and made, I can't remember, it was like $55,000, $65,000. It was a fantastic week, paid for the laptop in my first trade. And, I just realized how important it is to make sure you've got your computer and your charger. So for this trip, naturally, I made sure I had my charger packed, and it was pretty easy to roll out. When I was traveling in Mexico earlier this year, I had this same system, this traveling trading station here. So I've got the two USB monitors, which this is one of them. They're powered by their Asus USB monitors, super skinny. These are just fantastic. And then I had the laptop, and everything was in my bag. So all I did was grab this bag, got on the plane, flew down here yesterday, and now I'm settled. And this morning, I'm up $38,000. Boom. We had a stock squeezing. It was a nice setup, jumped in on a micro pullback, rode that first wave of momentum, squeezed as much as I could out of that move. And then when it started to pull back, I stepped off. I said, all right, I'm not going to overstay my welcome. Let's look and see if there's anything else. And I was really hoping that first $38,000 would be a cushion that I could then use for trades 2, 3, and 4, but we didn't end up having anything else that really looked good. So let's start breaking down what we've got here on the charts. Right now, you've got Zcar squeezing up a little bit. However, I expressed some uncertainty with this. Volume light feels like the backside of this move from last week. Yes, we had a great day on it here, but then, it pulled back. So these little bounces off the low, I mean, sometimes in a hot market, you get more out of it than you would expect. But generally, I just didn't think we'd get much. So my biggest winner was on GPUS, which has actually squeezed all the way up to $5 a share. Fantastic. I'm up $38,301.06. I don't even know why I fly commercial at this point. That certainly would have covered a private flight down here. But I mentioned in my episode on Friday that I'm a bit risk averse, and I try to, one of the things that I think is important with trading is to really live within your means. And the tricky thing with trading is that you can have these incredible green days and really incredible green years, but then you can also have really slow stretches. And I saw people who made millions of dollars during the pandemic. And what did they do? They went and they bought, the fancy Lamborghini for $500,000, which, is after tax. So you've got to make significantly more to have your after tax cover that. They bought a big house, a couple $1 million, whatever. And then all of a sudden, when things start to slow down in 2022 and 2023, they're sitting there with a really high cost of living, and they're struggling to even make $5,000 a day. to make $1 million a year pre-tax, $500,000 after tax. And they realized, wow, trading is fantastic, but you've got to be able to recognize that trading has swings. You have big upswings, but then you can have these long slow periods. So when you're in an upswing, look, pay yourself, put that money away, but don't move your cost of living and lifestyle all the way up to the top of that hot market, because then you have nowhere, all of a sudden when things slow down, you've got no cushion. And that's what a lot of people do. So you got to be careful about that. So GPUS, let's break this one down. So when I first sat down this morning, big picture, I was sitting down 5:45, looking at the scanners, and there really wasn't much that looked good. But from the watch list on Sunday that I uploaded, KWE had popped up, predictably. So I said on my watch list, this one I would definitely watch early pre-market, and you got that squeeze right there. I didn't trade it. For me, it was just a little too early, but it went from $6.60 all the way up to $9. 50% move, $3 a share there. But then it reversed the whole move. Now, what I had said during my game plan episode on Sunday was that I was concerned that this is the type of company that might do a secondary offering. They do have a shelf registration. Their balance sheet didn't look that great when I was looking at their most recent quarterly annual earnings statement. And so I thought, it's going up with no news. I just don't know if I can trust it. But it doesn't really matter, because by the time I was sitting down, it had dropped so much that I wasn't interested in trading it below the volume weighted average price, which is right there. So it was been below VWAP all morning. So that was the first stock that hit the scans, or that was on the scans. And I said, nope, not interested in that. So then after that, I'm going to scroll back here on my scans for a second. JCSE popped up. Now, JCSE I've seen on the scans before, and it tends to pop and drop. It popped up right here to 150, and right when it came up to 145, there was a 50,000 share seller. It got bought up, and then there was another 50,000 share seller in the 50s. So I said to myself, who's selling 100,000 shares of this stock this quickly? Maybe someone who bought 100K down here and is just flipping out for a quick trade? Maybe, but it just tells me that they don't have the conviction that this is going to go that much higher. And I didn't like that. And it immediately reversed all the way down to 90 cents a share. It's a pretty big drop very quickly. So below VWAP, no trades. This was a little too cheap anyways. BCRX hit the scans, float 198 million shares, no trades. GPUS hits the scans at 199. All right, so it hits the scan at $1.99, and it had popped up here, pulled back, and I didn't think much of it. So it just popped up there just for a second. I just thought, no, it's light volume, not really sure about it, kind of disregarded it. So then it pops up to, let's see, what time was this? This was 7:15. So then it goes up to 226 and then 250. And at that point, I was like, well, geez, this thing is moving. And I was sort of surprised because the headline was earnings. But our last few earnings headlines from last week didn't really work that well. So I sort of wasn't thinking that earnings was going to be a strong enough catalyst. But nonetheless, it's squeezed. So it goes right here from $1.50 up to $1.99, $2. Micro pullback, didn't trade it. I was like, I don't know, I'm not really sure. Pops up here to 250, micro pullback, I bought right there. I said, you know what? All right, I'm going to jump in. So I bought 10,000 shares right there, about 260. So I got in here, 260. It pops up to 3, up to 310, 320. I take half off the table. It goes a little higher, all the way up to 380. I was truly impressed. I was like, this is a huge move. So I ended up taking some profit at about 330 and then adding back at 357 and taking profit as it squeezed right here up to a high of $4. So it goes up to 410. I took the profit off, and I mean, that little squeeze right there, the first part was $5,000. And then the second part of that move was $10,000. So I was up $15,000 right in this little window. All right, so it ends up popping up to 4. I made another $3,000 on this little trade, so I was up 18,000. It dips down to 3, and I did a dip trade off of 3. It bounces for a second, but I was sort of like not sure about it. Then it starts to curl back up right here, and right there, I got back in. I bought 15,000 shares right there, and I was looking for the breakthrough 4. And then right there, it pops up to 4. It does a rejection and drops back down. So I was like, So small winner, but it was nothing really significant. So then it goes sideways. And then right here, we get another attempt at the pop up through 4. And so I jumped in here, and then we get a micro pullback right over 4, added there, and we get a squeeze up to 460. And that, for me, was my biggest trade of the day. So that trade took me from 18,000 on the day to 38,000. I had a cushion. I was able to afford taking risk. So I was doing 5,000 share blocks, 5, 10, 15, 20, then holding, giving it a second, and doubling on the squeeze through the high up to 30,000 shares, 35,000 shares, looking for that push. I was hoping for a squeeze up to 5, and then it pulled back. So scaled and unwind the position as it pulled back, dips down, starts to pop up again, but look at the 1 minute. MACD starts to go negative. So the MACD going negative here on the 1 minute, this kept me out of taking this trade right here. And you know what was sort of interesting on GPUS was seeing some big buyers. So right in this area here, there was a 150,000 share buyer sitting right down here. And we kept dipping down and popping back up, dipping down, popping back up. And that buyer was just sitting there. And I kind of thought, on the one hand, is this a spoof order? Is this someone who's trying to get people to buy so they can fill on a short order? And I was thinking maybe, but then once it broke this level, I decided to jump in. And so we got that big squeeze there and then this pop right there. So the reason I jumped in was because of that big buyer right down there. And then as this popped up, the buyer moved its order up to about $4, 150,000 shares. So I was like, wow, okay. So then rode that momentum up to here. And then we come back down, the buyer cancels the order, then puts it back, then it drops, they cancel their order, and then they put it back, then they cancel their order, then they put it back. And I'm like, this is weird. They keep canceling the order and putting it back. And so at that point I said, I think I'm done with this. I don't want to overstay my welcome. So it drops down, ends up sort of pulling back. The buy order ends up getting canceled. They don't replace it. And it unwinds all the way back down. Now, I didn't end up looking to see if the buy order was, came back as it sort of made this rally back up. I kind of stopped paying attention to it. But nonetheless, that price action was throwing me off a little bit because it felt like there was a really big buyer or someone sort of, I don't know, there was a big buyer out there that felt like they were controlling the price action a little bit with that order, just the way they were placing it and canceling it, placing it and canceling it. So that I just wasn't sure what that was about. Now, right here, this is sort of interesting. 410, previous high, holding, then breaking. Back above it, holding. So previous resistance, now support. We'll see. Maybe that would be interesting. And then for a rally back up towards 5. So, but if it breaks, then that's not going to work. So GPUS is the only one I traded. As the morning went on, AIFF popped up on the scans. Oops, I just closed that by accident. Well, it doesn't matter. So AIFF popped up, dropped down. Didn't really trust that one, so left it alone. There are a couple other stocks that were moving today, but nothing as nicely as GPUS. What I was really hoping we would have happen was, that I would have this nice cushion from GPUS, and that another stock would pop up and I could afford to start on my first trade on it with 15, 20,000 shares. And then all of a sudden, potentially, I'm at another $50,000, $60,000 day, like, the previous Mondays and Tuesdays where it's just been super hot. So that didn't happen today. But the good news is I've got a solid cushion here on Monday. So now I feel like I've got the wind at my back a little bit. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to be sitting down, feeling a bit more confident. We're still seeing fantastic momentum. It's not on every single stock. I don't know exactly why GPUS worked as well as it did, even though the headline didn't seem to be as significant as I think. Well, we just haven't seen good response from that headline. So I think there was something kind of going on behind the scenes on GPUS that I'm not aware of. But, rode the momentum on it. That was good. Detected a stock moving quickly and jumped on fast. And that was key. So tomorrow, I'm going to be looking for stocks that are moving quickly. and then jumping on as quick as I can to capture as much of that move as possible. So that's the game plan. Those of you guys who've been doing a 2-week trial, you've been able to watch over my shoulder. Let people know here in the comments on YouTube what it's like to do that trial and to be, at least a member during that period. I think it'll encourage other people to check it out. So those of you guys who haven't already done 2-week trial, link will be posted in the top of the comments and in the description so you can try it. 2 weeks for $20. You're going to learn a ton. You're going to get a lot of value out of it. And I think you'll really enjoy it. Now, I'll also put links to a couple of recent uploads right here, here, and here that I hope you guys check out and I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you as always for tuning in. Reminder, trading is risky. My results aren't typical. So please manage your risk and practice in the sim before ever putting real money on the line.